Tonight, the creepiness continues. From McDonald workers who bust out a Ouija board to unsettling encounters, these 3 horror stories are sure to bring you chills. You're watching Don't Turn Around Scary Stories. I work the night shift at a fast food drive-thru. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. You get all sorts of weirdos in the middle of the night, but there's one guy who's particularly creepy. He's this homeless dude who always shows up when we're closed. I call him Bulging Eyes because, well, his eyes bulge out like he's constantly surprised or something. So, here's the thing. When I first started working here, I felt bad for the guy. He'd come up to the window with his suitcase on wheels, looking all intense and ask for food. I didn't know any better, so I gave him a burger one night. Big mistake. My manager chewed me out good for that. "We can't be giving away free food or they'll keep coming back," he said. Bulging Eyes always had this off vibe about him. He'd stand there, talking to himself, staring at me. I tried to ignore him, but it was hard. Those crazy eyes stared at me for what felt like forever. One time he was outside in the pouring rain, completely soaked, but something was off. He was just standing there, staring at the building. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. He was like a statue, letting the rain pound on him. He must have stood there for hours. I hear all these stories of the homeless suddenly attacking and killing people. I didn't want to be a victim, so I changed my hours and took the morning shift. But then I'm shocked to find Bulging Eyes in the restaurant before I even get there. He's sitting down in the back, watching me the whole time. My new manager says Bulging Eyes is in every day. It's his routine. One day after my shift ends, I see him walking down the street. I don't know what comes over me, but I decide to follow him. I feel like a total stalker. He turns into a park, and I keep my distance, making sure he doesn't notice me. He walks through the park and then slips through a gap in a fence. My heart is pounding, but I follow him. I feel super nervous, but my curiosity pushes me forward. Eventually, I come across a small clearing with a tent pitched in the middle. It's a raggedy old thing, barely holding together. Bulging Eyes is there, and he's not alone. There's a young boy sitting on the ground. Bulging Eyes kneels down and gives the boy a burger. I freeze. This is not what I expected. Here he is, a father trying to take care of his kid the best way he can. My mind races, trying to process what I'm seeing. As I watch them, I realize that everything I thought about him has changed. I feel a pang of guilt for all the times I judged him, all the times I felt uncomfortable and scared. I quietly slip away, leaving them to their meal. As I walk back to my car, I can't stop thinking about them. Over the next week, whenever I saw him, I always gave him extra free food. It was the least I could do, right? After my shift, I head back to the park. I have 2 meals in paper bags, one my lunch and one I paid for. I leave the sandwiches near the tent with a note and walk away, hoping it'll help them, even just a little. You know, that someone's watching out for them. After that, he never came back. A week later, I'm online, and I see a kid's picture. The headline reads, "Missing Child Alert." Instantly, I recognize him as being the kid with bulging eyes. He's been missing a month. Police think someone climbed into his home when he was sleeping and abducted him. Panic sets in. I realize the kid isn't his son. I don't waste a second. I call the police. When they arrive, I show them where the tent is, but when we get there, it's empty. Bulging Eyes and the kid are nowhere to be found. The police thank me and assure me they'll keep looking, but I can tell they're not hopeful. I told them everything except how I gave Bulging Eyes food. I couldn't deal with them thinking I was the one who tipped him off by inadvertently letting him know I knew where he lived. About a week ago, they said the kid had been found, strangled and wrapped in a bag in a dumpster. I saw a video of his mom and dad breaking down when they heard the news. It was heartbreaking. Bulging Eyes is still out there somewhere, but nobody seems to know where. If you see him, just don't do what I did, as it'll haunt you forever. I worked the graveyard shift at McDonald's. It was around 2 in the morning, and we hadn't had anyone come in the drive-thru for some time. The manager is on break and always goes home. So I'm in there on my own with 3 of my friends from high school and this older worker, Max, who always keeps to himself. There are no customers, so to pass time, my friend Balan busts out a Ouija board. We all come out from behind the counter and sit down at a table in the middle of the restaurant. Nothing happens at first, but then the lights suddenly flicker. It really freaked me out. Then there's this hissing sound. It's the speakers. So, we all put hands on the wooden pointer thing. At first, nothing happens, but then it moves to a letter F. I instantly think a U is coming next, as I'm sure it's one of the guys moving it. But it spells out fries. The second that S hit, the fries suddenly turned on. Then the lights all went out. The only light now coming from the eerie glow of the fryers turning themselves on. Like, everything was off, but that machine was on. It didn't make sense. Max broke the silence, under his breath saying that this has happened before, but nobody believed him. We all cautiously moved towards the fryers, trying to make sense of what's happening. Out of the corner of my eye, I spot shadows flickering past the drive-thru window, but dismiss it as my imagination. But then I felt a wind hit me, and it got real cold in there. There weren't any windows open, and the doors locked, and it wasn't windy outside. All the trees were still. The Ouija board, forgotten in the initial panic, suddenly clatters to the floor on its own. The wooden pointer skitters across the tiles and stops abruptly at the entrance to the back room, where promotional and marketing materials throughout the years were stored, and several statues. They always gave me the creeps, as they were very lifelike and tall. For a split second, as I'm looking in there, I swear I see one of them blink. Then I hear a soft, haunting rendition of the McDonald's jingle, a distorted version of the tune that once beckoned hungry customers. It's coming from one of the statues. All of a sudden, I'm tapped on the shoulder and jump. But it's just Max, saying there's a customer at the drive-thru. As I slowly approach, I notice a car in the security camera at the order window. I can see it just waiting there, which spooks me. Suddenly, this deep voice says,
"Hello?"
I shit you not, we're all standing there, pointing at each other. No one wants to answer it. But I do. They ask for fries. The voice was a low, gravelly whisper that seemed to slither through the air, wrapping around my senses like cold fingers clutching at my spine. I ask several times what size fries they want, but don't get a reply. So I just tell them to move around to the order window. I watch it roll around, and then it doesn't come. There's a curve that's a blind spot on the camera, so we all know it must be there. We wait a few minutes, and I'm shaking inside right now, trying not to let anyone notice. Balan says he'll go outside and check it out, but we decide he shouldn't be going out on his own. So we all follow, even Max. But when we get to the corner, the car isn't where it should be. It's like it just disappeared. We sprinted back inside, slamming the door behind us. My hands were shaking, heart pounding in my chest. Then, the other side door rattled violently. I glanced over, and there he was. Ronald McDonald, his painted smile twisted in the dim light. At first, I laughed nervously, thinking it had to be the manager playing some sick prank. But then I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Another Ronald McDonald, standing eerily still. And then another. There were about 5 of them, all at different windows, all encircling the restaurant. My breath caught in my throat as they pressed their faces against the glass, their makeup smudged, eyes wide and unblinking. Their hands pounded on the windows. The sound grew louder, more frantic. Suddenly the lights flickered and went out. Just as quickly they turned back on. And in that split second, the Ronalds were gone. A truck pulled in at the driveway and started ordering food. I went to assist, but then 5 minutes later realized all my coworkers had bailed. I was the only one in the restaurant. They had been spooked so much, they all went home. There was no way I was staying on my own, so I ran to my car. leaving McDonald's unlocked. I don't work at McDonald's anymore. I'm now at Taco Bell. The best thing working here is they don't have a creepy mascot. It's a yappy little chihuahua named Taco. But still, I only work the day shifts now. You know, just in case. I'm 18. I get hit on a lot by guys. But this one time, damn. I'm still scared just thinking about it. I'm in the gap year between high school and college, trying to make some cash, so I'm working the night shift at a fast food joint. This slick, expensive car rolls up. Like seriously fancy. It's some type of Corvette, mixed with a Batmobile. I've never seen anything like it. And you know whoever owns it is beyond loaded. The guy inside looks like he belongs in some high-powered office, not at a drive-thru at midnight. He checks his jacket, pats his pockets, and then leans out the window. "Hey, I can't find my wallet," he says, flashing this perfect smile. "Can you cover me? I'm good for it. I'll pay you back 10 times over," he shouts. He's ordered $10 worth of food, so that would be 100 coming back to me if he keeps his word. $100? I'm like, what? Sure, I'll do it, I say. I pay for him, and he asks for my home address so he can mail me a check. He says he's old school and doesn't do Venmo. I scribble my address, and I'm about to hand it over. But that's when my manager steps in, saying it's not a good idea. The guy's face changes. He goes from all happy and cool to angry. In a span of 2 seconds, his smile vanishes. He starts yelling, screaming. He's gonna fucking kill the manager and run over him at the end of his shift. It gets real heated before Mr. Corvette screeches away. I'm left there, shaken. An hour later, and I'm taking out the trash. It's dark, the parking lot nearly empty. I get this prickly feeling on the back of my neck, like I'm being watched. I go to my car and find a note on my windshield, tucked under the wiper. It's written in this neat, almost obsessive handwriting. "Thanks for the food. I'll be seeing you." My heart skips a beat. I look around, but there's no one there. Midnight hits, and I'm trying to focus on my work when I hear a car horn blaring from the parking lot. I look out of the window, and there he is, parked at the edge of the lot. Lights off, engine purring softly. The guy inside is waving at me, gesturing for me to come over. My heart is racing, and I don't know what to do. But then my manager steps in. "Stay here," he says, giving me a stern look before heading out to the lot. I watch as he approaches the car, but before he can get too close, the car peels away. My manager stands there for a moment, staring after it, then walks back inside, shaking his head. "That guy's trouble," he mutters. "You did the right thing." The next day, my manager pulls me aside, looking more serious than I've ever seen him. He says there's been warnings sent around about the car guy. Apparently, he's been targeting young, attractive workers, showing up at their homes, trying to push his way inside. They had warned management to be on the lookout. I didn't hear anything more about it. Until a week later. I'm scrolling through my feed when I see a news story that makes my blood run cold. A girl from a nearby town was attacked and is now in the hospital. She was brutally beaten with a baseball bat. The news showed surveillance footage of the attacker. It was the same car guy. The police think he's been doing this for a while, stalking young women and who knows what else. I can't shake the image of his cold, lifeless eyes from my mind. And I wonder what would have happened if my manager wasn't there that night, and if I'd given the creep my address. Now, every time I see a car pull up, every time I hear a horn honk, my heart races. I feel he's close by, watching, waiting for another chance.
I'm lost.